Well,
is my mic on?
Should be. Let's see. Yep.
Testing. Testing.
Well, it's been a little minute.
It is.
Welcome to Homebodies Vlogcast. We are back. I'm Chris.
You just type my name.
We can do that.
And I'm Lauren.
And this is the Homebody Vlogcast.
Home is where it happens.
Home is where it happens.
I'm sorry.
So make yourself at home.
So I feel like we should tell you guys what we're getting into today. We are making before we get into that, we're making a tea table.
Tea table.
Hopefully it looks like a tea table and not something else. But while we're doing that, we are gonna have a little discussion. Do you want to tell them what your title is?
Yes, this episode will be called Lauryn
That's me.
on a Hill.
That's her.
Lauryn Hill. Well, the hill ain't her.
Oh, it ain't?
The hill represents elevation.
Okay. But it's also her last name.
Sure. Lauryn Hill is kind of, who kind of inspired this episode, but also your name being Lauren too.
Yes. Fun fact, they're not spelled the exact same way. Hers is spelled with a Y and mine's is spelled with an E.
So yeah, we will be discussing just what it looks like for my wife to be, I think it goes in these holes.
You're right.
What it looks like for my wife to be in
On a hill?
Yeah, to be on the hill, like metaphorically kind of being in a position to where you are a little higher maybe than other grounds, if you will. And kind of being in position to where you can, even though a lot of the stuff that you do as mom and as wife and as teacher and all of these different dynamics that you find yourself in, you don't always get that exposure, And I think Lauryn Hill, the artist, I think for me, when I came across her in 2020, I came across her. Oh, so that's D.
C is just going to be all.
Do both D's gotta get that?
Yes, it says
Okay.
×2.
I came across Lauryn Hill's album Unplugged, MTV Unplugged album, and I never heard it before until 2020. So you already know that year was a very interesting year for most people. But that was a very revealing year for me in a lot of different ways. And it was called Unplugged. So it's like, come on, man. You can't get a more fitting title than this. So I listened to that, man, and for me it was very eye-opening, a lot of different things that she was talking about in that album. So, my wife know when I like a song, I'm going to repeat that thing over and over and over.
Until your ears hurt. Well,
Until
not
your ears
yours,
hurt.
mine.
Am I putting these in D?
Just like that one. Just
Okay.
the 3.
All right, cool. So yeah, so I thought it would be cool to, because I think my wife was familiar. You familiar with her music as well, right?
Yeah.
The first album.
So, Miss Education was an album that I grew up on. Shout out
Wait,
to...
is this spelled? Sorry, is this spelled like Miss as in like Mrs. like you're with somebody, or Miss as
No,
in just?
Miss as in like not.
Got you.
Like,
Okay. All right. I was just making sure. I thought she was
Yeah.
playing because they call her Miss Lauryn Hill sometimes. So
Yeah, no, that's not. I think she put the Miss in there because she was older. But yes, so Miss Education was her first album, and I grew up on that when. Why was I about to say what I was about to say? Weird.
you about to shout somebody out? You shouting out your dad?
I was, but I'm gonna get there.
Okay,
So this is an album that, even though I don't know all the lyrics to the song, I'm familiar with the songs, and a lot of the songs are attached to certain memories that I have. Shout out to my dad, because this was the album that he played all the time, along with Jill Scott, Janet Jackson, and Mary J. Blige. But anyway, we ain't talking.
Hand me D. Huh? Hand me D.
We not talking about them today.
Thank God.
But I remember Lauryn Hill being on that list of his favorites, and that was a common theme or a common thing that he would play her album straight through in a lot of our car rides together with my sisters. So that will always forever be a memory. So that's kind of my connection with Lauryn Hill in terms of her music.
But you ain't necessarily know that her music was so like impactful in terms of her lyrics.
I will say the most impactful was the most popular one, the doo-wop. You know, the one that everybody, when this comes on, everybody get hyped because they know all the lyrics. I would say it wasn't until like recently, between maybe this year and last year, that I actually was paying attention to what was being said. Doo-wop, I knew most of the lyrics, not all of them. So I knew there was a lot of things that...
Keep talking. Just hand me F, G, H, and B.
There's
again.
2 G's and there's
Hand
2
me both.
F's.
Hand me both. And H and B. I need H and B.
2 G's, H, so you needed all of them, and B.
Yep. Thank you.
Sorry. And so I was doing something and I lost what I was doing.
Putting those in the side.
You asked me something.
I said you weren't aware of how her music was so saturated with like truth in it.
Yeah, and let's clarify, when we're talking about truth, we're talking about the Most High's word. If you want to say, AKA the Bible. I didn't know she had so much of the Most High's word. Okay, we didn't know that she had so much of the Most High's word in her music, even in Miseducation. But here's the kicker, is that it was hidden. So for people that just love something to bop to and thought that she was a really good lyricist because of all her rhyme scheme and how the phrases just hit you as a person, that's just scratching the surface. But she had so many biblical themes underneath what she was actually saying and where it was coming from. But it was more about, you had to really dig and listen. And I think obviously what helped with us is understanding the scriptures too, because if you don't understand the scripture, then you're going to be wondering, well, where is that coming from? Or it's just going to go right over your head, which it did. Yeah.
You're saying like some of the stuff that she said?
Yeah, I think I did, because, okay, so you already know, if you've already watched our channel, you know that we both have grown up in the church. So we kind of knew the church lingo. We kind of knew certain things about the Bible. So it wasn't like we were like so dumb that we didn't, grasp anything, but you think from a so-called secular artist that you don't really expect too much of like Bible stuff coming out of their lyrics. So when you really kind of sit down and look at the words that are being said and how it's like, wait, this sounds really familiar. This sounds like something I heard from the text. That's when it became more intriguing and interesting. For my husband, it was Unplugged that blew him away. But I could see already certain themes in Miseducation, which came before Unplugged, and we'll get to Unplugged later. But
even though I was a fan before Unplugged of Lauryn Hill, I was a fan of her before that album. But I feel like that album was, and you made a comment too about the different album. You said that was, I don't know if you want to mention that now or whatever.
Yeah, I'll mention it after you say what you say.
Well, yeah, I was a fan of her before the Unplugged album, but the Unplugged album was really what opened up my eyes to seeing like her directness.
Yeah, I was about to say it was more blunt, direct, like we not sugarcoating nothing. I'ma just lay it all out there. Yeah. And even in her delivery of Unplugged was like that. It was very like, it was natural. It was like, her throat at times were like raspy. So it was like, and she was like, listen, it's just gonna be raw. That's the perfect word for it. It was very raw. Right. It wasn't polished.
It was acapella.
Or anything like that. So, and I think she was playing the guitar herself.
Acoustic,
so, it was very like, I don't got all the frou-frou and extra stuff. The frou-frou? Did I say it right?
The foo-foo? Oh. I'm like, what's frou-frou? I knew what you meant.
Frou-frou, I think, is a horse off like a Disney movie or something. I can't remember.
I don't know frou-frou then.
Oh my gosh. What we should do in this video, we should like include a picture of frou-frou. I know it's from a Disney movie. I'm going to find it.
Boom.
It's a horse.
Frou-frou right there.
I'm sorry. I mixed. What is it? Foo-foo?
Foo-foo.
Wait, so is that,
I think foo-foo.
Is that short for Fugazi?
Fugazi.
I quit. I don't know no slang.
That's okay.
Listen, take my black card. I don't care, okay? I don't know any
have it.
I don't know any slang. I lied to you that.
You can have it.
Oh man, that's funny.
But yeah,
I was avid about that frou-frou.
She cut out a lot of the fluff. And
I was about to say frou-frou.
No, I was going to say foo-foo. She cut out a lot of the foo-foo and the fluff.
I thought you was going to be like, she cut out all the frou-frou. I was going to say, oh no. I influenced you. Anyways, so I'm going to mention the theme, not the theme, mention something that I noticed just if we focus in on the titles.
Yeah, it was a good point.
With her first album being called Miseducation, right? And then her second album was Unplugged. I know she did some like solo songs and stuff like that in between, but we're just gonna focus on those two albums.
Well, but that one solo one is kind of what led us into even talking more about the not the solo, but the feature she did on that Nas song. There's a song called Nobody.
Oh, yeah. Well,
her talking to her rap at the end.
Yeah.
That kind of led us down this path to even be like, yo, we should
pod
about this.
So we're going to be jumping around. So stay with this, okay? Because there's a lot of stuff going on right now.
Please stay with us.
Like, literally, there's a lot of stuff going on right now. I had to actually stop trying to put this thing together so I could focus on what I'm saying. That's okay. So back to the two titles. One of the things that I discovered about Unplugged and Miseducation was that these two albums reminded me a lot of the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus is talking to the crowd and just telling them things about the kingdom, right? And this is interesting because you have Miseducation, which I think represents, what did I say that it represents? It represents
talking to the crowd.
There it goes. So that it represented Jesus talking to the crowd, right? And then Unplugged.
Wait, but before you even get to that, Jesus talking to the crowd most of the times he spoke to them in parables.
Right.
And I'm just saying it because people might not necessarily know.
No. I was going to get to that, but
Okay. Or I was just going to add that in there. That he was talking in parables to where it was like these stories, right? Allegorical type stories where they had a deeper underlining meaning.
Right.
But he didn't always expose that to the crowd, but he
Right.
revealed that to his disciples.
Right. And so the story goes, I think you can find it in Matthew, that he's telling them these stories of the kind of person that would enter into the kingdom or what the kingdom is going to be like. And the disciples are the ones from the crowd that ask him, hey, what does all of this mean? And so for me, I guess it clicked that her Unplugged album was a lot like Jesus revealing the hidden meaning of the parables to the disciples, because she was very direct with what she meant to say. There was no
Frou-frou?
I was gonna say it was still poetic, because that's just, music, rap, that is poetry, but it didn't have as many I guess, I don't want to say metaphors, but I guess it wasn't as hidden. The best way I could explain it is that if she was very direct and straightforward with what she was talking about, which is interesting because I've heard from other people, I ain't gonna say who, that they didn't understand what she was talking about and that she was going cuckoo, is what was said about her in reference to this album. But I think that was a lack of understanding on other people's part. So if you have not listened to her album and you have read the Bible, because I would say it's going to be hard to see it if you haven't read the text, the Bible itself. If you have, and you're a fan of Lauryn Hill or whatever, and you haven't listened to her Unplugged album, I would actually encourage you to listen to it, because there are a lot of elements, a lot of things that I would just say everything that she's talking about is in some way, shape, or form in alignment with the Word of God, which I commend her for. So, Lauren, I don't know if you're watching this video, Miss Lauren, should I say, Miss Hill. We appreciate the contribution of putting that kind of content out there in a society and in a space where it's not
it ain't popular.
Yeah, it's not popular, it's not promoted,
listen,
and it was discouraged, according to,
if I'm not mistaken, that Unplugged album that came out, or that episode on MTV, the MTV Unplugged thing, it didn't air, if I'm not mistaken, from what I've looked at and saw.
I don't know. I thought it aired, but it just didn't make, it wasn't like
I heard they chose to not air it because of the content of what she was discussing.
Oh,
so it was like she was almost before her time. Like they wasn't really ready for what she was revealing. And
I'm gonna be honest, it wasn't like she was, in terms of the industry and calling it for what it was, she was saying that stuff in Miseducation.
Right.
If you were listening to it.
You had ears to hear.
But man, there's so much to like tackle here, because I want to go into like the lyrics of,
Well, which one? You want to start with a certain one? You want to start with Miseducation? You want to start with the crowd one, and then?
Yeah, but there's a part that so let me just piggyback before we get into that.
You piggybacking on yourself?
Yes. A part of me also wants to share with you guys.
We lamb back. We don't piggyback.
Oh my gosh. Why? I feel like Keenan when I said that. Why? What I was trying to say was I want to explain with you all, because we're having a chat here, about me in conjunction with these lyrics, or Miss Hill and her beautiful lyrics. I feel like I said lyrics twice. But anyways, so one of the things that I wanted to share in light of just speaking to the titles, the names of the albums, is that on a personal level, just like I gave you kind of like a biblical connection On a personal level, these two album titles represented a journey that I've been on for, I would say, as long as we've been here in Georgia, and maybe a little bit before that. So miseducation is interesting, its name, because if I'm not mistaken, mis means like not or
incorrectly.
Yeah,
or
it's a
something.
prefix. Hold on. It's just gonna take me just a second to, I don't wanna misquote. Okay, so miss means badly. Okay?
Badly?
Yes, badly.
Ooh.
So
Yikes.
to title your album
glad you looked it up.
Miseducation, I'm gonna go into the interlude, which is what you were referring to. The miseducation. So mis meaning badly, and then we all know education, the system. If you even look at her album cover, it's a desk. So it's in connection with like education, like going to school, public school, private school, whatever you want to put it. Going to a traditional school where you're sitting at a desk, right? And nope, I'm not gonna get ahead of myself, but just stay with me. So you have miseducation, right? And so in my journey, in our transition from, where we were at our former church and where we are now, I was trying to figure out how I was going to say it, because I could have said Philadelphia to Georgia or PA to GA. There's so many ways I can say it, but our move here from one place to another was a journey of miseducation. It was me recognizing that I was being miseducated, and not just on a level of doctrine and all that. And listen, you could listen to our other videos where we talk more about why we, left the church that we are at, our transition here. So I'm not going to really get into that, but in terms of my own personal journey that I was on, is first recognizing that, there are some things that I need to like unschool, which is funny because that's the type of homeschooling that method I use for my children. So I stay at home with them, and unschooling is another. I hate saying unschooling though, because the stigma is that you're not doing anything. When unschooling is really the child has certain interests, and you're kind of letting that lead you in how you are, facilitating their education experience. And it's not so much textbook and sit down and do this. It's more interactive. We're going places, we're doing certain activities and things like that. I said all that to say that unschooling, we learned in this journey that it's not only about just a homeschool method, but unschooling can be applied to everything. And that is literally what our journey has been. Getting here and being here in Georgia is unschooling thoughts, teachings that we had to let go and really put under fire to see, to test, or what the Bible says talks about testing the spirits, and really having to see like, is this
right and exact?
Right. Is this really true? Did he really say such and such and such?
Whatever the topic.
Right.
Yeah.
And it having no limits, meaning everything is on the table. Everything is on the chopping block. And now we got to sift through all of this and see what is true and what stuff has just been added to his word by man and those traditions of man. And if it is a tradition of man, then it's time to purge the evil among us, right? And so getting back to
you using pause quotes.
right.
Purge the evil.
I'm reading Corinthians, so that's kind of on my brain more. But so that whole unschooling started out with my children being unschooled, and me kind of going down this road of how I was going to, educate and homeschool them, but excuse me. But then it became a mental state where now I have to unschool too. He had to unschool. The whole family was unschooling in a way. It wasn't just the kids. And so for miseducation, it was connected to my journey because in unschooling, you have to, or there's another term I'm going to throw out there. So you could say unschooling, or a better word would be deschooling, which is what children would do, or parents would do with their children to kind of almost like soften the blow of being in the institution or being in a certain system. And so you could kind of have a free space to start educating your children in whatever way that you like to, that differs from the traditional way of school. And so this also applies to us as individuals because we had to, like I said, purge the evil among us and let go of a lot of things. But in order to let go of certain things, you have to identify what is miseducation or what is not.
And I would just say a lot of the things that had to get let go of was stuff that we may have been holding on to ourselves. Like it may have not even been stuff from like other people in terms of what somebody else said.
Yeah,
but
it wasn't always
stuff,
that.
It's just stuff that we thought we knew about stuff when
we
it comes
taught
to God's
ourselves,
word. Yeah. That we
Stuff
had to
we
really
assumed.
examine and be like, hold up, why am I holding to this? Where does it say this working? But just to add that in there.
Right. And so that I'm going to talk more about that with the certain lyrics of a song that I'm thinking about from Miss Lauren. So the other side of that, or not the other side of that, but the other album, Unplugged, like I said, was more raw, right? And so how it applies to the same journey that I'm talking about that I was on, or I am on, but in more of a direct and impactful way. And what I mean is that the Unplugged album being raw in every way, where she just shared God's word in just in a different way, while also sharing her story. And it was very uncut version that I think if you are very into, I guess, celebrities, pop culture, it just seems so opposite from what is common or expected when it comes to artists and performances. But it was beautiful in its simplicity. And so it speaks very loudly to where I am, where going through this process of purging the evil, and I'm just going to keep saying that because I feel like that's the perfect sentence or phrase, and letting go of things that are not truth, but just added stuff.
GMOs.
Right. MSG. And I forgot my sentence. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that Unplugged represents for me getting to a place where I am more connected with the Most High. I understand His word so much better than I have in years. And Unplug also represents many things to come. Like, I guess is what people would call like the light at the end of the tunnel. But I'm also experiencing that light now. So to make it practical, I would say internally things have changed for me, and I'm starting to see, I guess, the results of what has changed internally for me, where I've had to stand my ground on certain occasions, whether it's encountering people, stand my ground about, hey, we not doing this. Me and my house, we don't do that. And being able to create that line of distinction, even among people that call themselves believers too.
So let me ask you this.
And go ahead.
How has you seeing her lyrics or her song or her music, how has that helped to play a role in you having more either confidence or more clarity or more like, certainty in terms of you standing on what you needed to stand on, or kind of making this shift? Like, how has, either things that she said from what you've heard in her music or whatever, like how has that kind of added to that season of life for you in terms of...
You mean now or back then?
Back then, I mean, you can talk about it from early on.
Right, so that's a perfect segue, because to answer that question, I would have to go through the lyrics that I picked out anyway.
Okay.
So I believe I did 4 songs. Don't quote me, but it's 4 songs for me with the lyrics that stood out. But overall, both albums, I think there's a lot to gain and pull from. But this is just me personally. And I wasn't trying to go over and beyond with throwing a bunch of lyrics at y'all. So the first one, I'll start with the most popular, which was doo-wop. That's what I grew up on. That was my jam. Whenever this thing came on, it just got me pumped to do whatever. Like, I think I could have been going to, like, I don't know. I was going to say a prison cell, but I wasn't. But I could have been going somewhere bad, but that song played, and it's just like, I can't not, like...
I get you moving.
Right. But the thing about it that was encouraging, and I didn't even think about it till now, was there's a part in the song where she talks about us having like hair like Europeans, nails like Koreans, nails done by Koreans.
Which song are you talking about?
This is doo-wop. I already said that it's doo-wop. Yeah. Or that thing. So that part within itself is funny, because I look back at my journey of just, what it really looks like to be beautiful. And I can say that she was definitely an influence with that, because of, she might have been, maybe not the first woman I've seen with locks, but a celebrity that was popular that had locks, or that had like, an afro, or like... So, and even now, like, she wears her hair naturally. It's not like, I don't recall a lot of pictures where she got her hair straight. And then everybody knows her from Sister Act 2, where she had braids. So she was really dope in her representation. I don't want to say of Black women, but just representation of, like, redefining what beauty actually looks like. Especially when her hair was in locks, because I feel like back then maybe it was popular, but to me, growing up in the 90s, my personal opinion, it wasn't that popular.
What, natural hair and stuff?
Natural hair, and I feel like that didn't come until later, that people was like, and then it blew up and it was like, oh, big chop and all of that. But I was in college by that time. But yeah, so I would say she definitely had a physical influence in that way of saying, like, yo, redefine beauty. You don't have to press your hair. You don't have to put on makeup. You don't have to do, and I know she didn't say all of this in her lyrics, but that's what I guess gleaned from that, is like, you don't have to follow the social norms of what beauty is. The society doesn't define beauty. Right?
If I could say this, she was real countercultural.
Yes, definitely.
Real countercultural. And
so what I really wanted to get to with doo-wop was the lyrics of her song. In terms of her verses, I know it was a whole bunch of stuff she got going on in there. I didn't really know them when I first came out. The only part that I could tell you I knew for sure was the chorus. And so for me growing up, I don't know if I've shared this on this channel. I feel like I have. I did not have sex until I met my husband and we got married. And so,
for real?
Oh my gosh! Wow. I was not. I didn't know you was gonna have that reaction. But yeah. So with that being said, hearing a song like this and it's like encouraging to a young girl like me, where it's like, yo, listen, watch out, because some of these guys are like, not that I didn't know that, but I was also naive because of my innocence, I guess.
They want that thing.
Right. So her encouraging both men and women, which I appreciated, because the stigma is that women can't, at the time, I guess, that women couldn't be like that. They couldn't be thirsty, but, and it was just a man thing. So I appreciate that she said men and women. But, you know, I was very focused on the fact that she said, hey, you better watch out, because some of these guys, they only care about one thing. And it was helpful because it's like, hey, for somebody like me that was on a journey to try to remain pure, try to, you know, save myself from marriage, that was helpful to hear an artist say like, yo, be careful out there, because people are scheming. Like, and if they want that thing, like, yo, it's not good. Don't go down this road. And so I appreciate her as an artist using her gift to promote good, righteousness. So I
even when that may have affected your ability to get more fans, that may have affected your record label deals and your popularity. That could have affected all of that.
That's still funny
time.
that's one of her most popular songs,
right?
And it was so countercultural at the same time. So the other part of doo-wop, and then I'm gonna move on to the next song, was just simply when she says, how you gonna win when you ain't right within? And even though I love her saying that part, like, of the song, it is, oh, look at that, it really came together. Okay, we gotta get that in full focus so you can actually see the whole thing, because it looks nice. But yeah, so when she said, how you gonna win when you ain't right within, really spoke to me, because all of it starts from inwardly, your mind and your spirit, your heart. Like, those are all inward. The parts that people can't see, but how someone is able to see is it comes throughout your actions. So we think of, I think it's Proverbs chapter 4, verse 26. I'm going off the top. It might be 23. Don't quote me on it, but it talks about guard your heart, because from it flows the springs of life. So what is already in us is going to come out in what we do. And so she just kind of challenged that thought of like, yo, how you think you're going to succeed in life if you ain't right within? Like, you can't be all messed up in the inside and then think all the good stuff just going to come out. That just doesn't make any sense. What is in is going to come out. So if it's ugly inside, go listen. The ugly going to come out. But if it's beautiful inside, yo, the beauty will come out. And that reminds me of one of my favorite verses from 1 Peter chapter 3, verses, I think it's, you could just read 1 to 6, really. But it talks about what the Most High loves, and he loves someone that has a gentle and quiet spirit. These are invisible things. And think about it. He's an invisible God. Why wouldn't he care about the spiritual things, the things that are unseen, more than physical things? But here's the kicker. They both are intertwined. So what is spiritual can have some like residue that is physical. Not can, but does. But yeah, so that really spoke to me and was a challenge. Like, yo, check yourself inwardly. because that's how you're really going to distinguish between being successful and being a failure. And let me just clarify, when I say success and failure, I'm not talking about you getting all your dreams, you know, pursuing all your dreams or everything you want to do in life, you being able to do. That's not the success I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the success of society, getting to the top notch of your company or whatever, your workplace or whatever is on your to-do list, bucket list or whatever. I'm not talking about that kind of success. Success, according to his word, according to the Most High, is life in the kingdom. And guess what the opposite is? Death and destruction. And you don't get to enter in the kingdom. So that's the true failure that I'm referring to. But yeah, so there's that. And then I'm going to throw in another song that, and I'm kind of going in order here. So I'm trying to do the miseducation songs first, and then I'll get to the unplugged. So I think the next one on the list is, I want to say, no, that's, oh, okay. Correction. I think doo-wop was the only one that I was gonna I'm referring to from Miseducation, but then remember you stated a song. Oh, Nobody. That's what it was. Nobody. But this is Nas's song.
Yes.
It's not Lauryn Hill's, but she featured on it. So
She did.
I'm gonna read what she actually said.
And this was kind of the song that we looked at that kind of even got this conversation started.
That's true.
About doing a possible pod, because wifey was talking about, you know, the beauty of, and I don't know how much you want to speak on it, but just the beauty of being in secret with stuff, being in a secret place, not necessarily having everything that you doing just all out there, and not necessarily just uncovering or unveiling everybody else's thing that they got going on. Like keeping other people covered. So when she said that, it triggered, when she mentioned like
This
being
is
in
the
a secret place,
yeah.
It made me think of this song. So I was like, hey, you ever heard this? So she went to go read the lyrics. That's what you're about to hear now.
Yes, so the lyrics I'm about to read to you are what came up, what you brought up when I kind of talked about, we'll just say quietness, but I'll speak more about what I said that triggered my husband's response to the lyrics. So here's the lyrics. It says, the ditch you dig for them, you might just end up in yourself. I'm in the secret place. I keep a sacred space. They kept showing their hands, but keep hiding their face. If I'm a messenger, you block me, then you block the message. So aggressive, the world you made is what you're left with. Pride and ego over love and truth is bleepity reckless.
What was that? What kind of reckless?
Bleepity. But there's more, but I'm just gonna stop there. So it's really focusing in on what she said about the secret place, or being in the secret place. And this was really interesting, and I love their conversation about it, because we were talking about what the Bible means when it says quiet or silent or silence, because you have these passages, mainly in like talking about the epistles of Paul, where you have, what is it, Timothy, where he's talking about the women being silent in the church. And I think a lot of times when someone hears it, not even someone, just when women hear that, it immediately becomes like, well, dag, like we not supposed to talk, like, dang, there go that. We need to have that women empowerment, because like clearly like the Bible's sexist. And it's like, whoa, let's not go that far. That because I know we serve a good God, and that he created good things, all good things he created. And the things that he created, he literally said they are good. I'm going to go with the inclination that when he does stuff, it's for our good. Then I don't even have to do that because his word also says that. So,
by the way, real quick, I think it's very imperative that you are speaking during this episode primarily, because I feel like we're in a time to where women, you know, there's such an attack on women, but it's disguised as like women's empowerment, but it's really an attack on women, honestly. So for you to dispel the miseducation, right, of the scriptures in their relationships to women or whatever, I think that's very refreshing for people to hear a woman speak to certain things and it not just be from a man being like a woman this and woman that, but it's like you're speaking from a woman's perspective who spent time looking at these things. That is very important, and it's imperative. I feel like especially during the times that we're in, especially after the election and all this other stuff. There's a lot of individuals.
the year of the woman.
Yeah, there's a lot of individuals that feel away with stuff and they don't know how to properly process things because, you know, they're not being guided well. But you being a woman speaking to that, this is you.
I'm women.
You're women's. You're women's. This is you being put on a hill.
Even though I don't want to be.
I know, and that's the beautiful thing, because you don't want to be. You're not looking for the spotlight or the hill. Like, listen to me. So it's like, look at the me.
What?
Remember on King of Queens? He was like, oh, look at the me. And she was like, what accent is that? He was like, I don't know.
I do remember that.
But yeah, so I just wanted to speak on that like, yo, I'm actually glad that you are sharing this, because a lot of times it's more
lonely
men
out here. I'm doing all the speaking. I'm like,
I mean, I don't mind chiming in, but I'm letting you get it off, like, because I think this is good. It's called
I
Lauren on the
appreciate
Hill for a reason.
I know, and I appreciate that you, being the leader of this household, can say I can dial back, so she can have her moment, because I think that's important to recognize. As a good leader, you have to be a good servant.
That's a fact.
And that really is what leadership is. It's just a title to say, hey, you're even greater servant.
But yeah, you can finish what you're saying.
Yeah, so I think I was talking about the whole secret place thing.
Yeah.
And so I don't remember how the conversation started, but I know that
It was about the Corinthians and the women being quiet and all of that. I don't know how much you want to get into that, but that's kind of where we started with.
Oh yeah, that's what I was talking about. Okay,
Yes.
so I had mentioned the whole thing about, you know, the passage, I think it's in Timothy, about the women being silent in the church. And then the passage I just referred or referenced earlier, which was one of my favorites, 1 Peter chapter 3, also references that the Most High loves a woman who has a imperishable beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit. And I don't know about y'all, but, you know, at first, as a woman, you get mad at the whole quiet thing. Like, why you keep calling us quiet? Now,
I say we can't talk.
and the funny thing is, I was telling Khristian that this was the second time I've seen a reference of a woman being quiet, being told to be quiet, or being encouraged to be quiet. It's like, okay, you want us to have a quiet spirit and you want us to be quiet in the church. What is with this quiet thing, right? And so I went to go look it up. I went to go look up the Strongs and everything. I'm not going to go through that,
About
but I'll
quiet?
at least tell you what kind of things came up for me, which kind of made our conversation go in the direction it did. Quiet can mean keeping one's seat, being still, undisturbed, tranquil, calmness. It can also be referred to as sitting, firm, immovable, steadfast, settled. And then I'm also going to give you the definition of silence, because that's what was used for being silent in the church. It's to keep secret, and this was the kicker. To keep secret, keep close, to hold one's peace. And I think out of all the definitions, the one that I really gravitated most towards was keeping secret. Secrets kind of have a negative, tone to it. When I look at the scripture, it's actually the opposite. Now, I'm not saying that secrets aren't never bad, because they can be that way, right? There's a balance. But I'm seeing where there's several books in the Bible or verses where it actually refers to secrets and hidden things as a good thing. You have in the Gospels where Jesus is saying and encouraging the listeners that, hey, it would be better for you to do things in secret. And when you do those things in secret, your Father, who is also in secret, will reward you. So this idea of secret is not only just literally somebody whispering, a message, but secret place is a place that's hidden. You could even go as far as to say it's spiritual, because God is spirit. And it says he's also in secret. So it's a way of life to move. And like you said, to not always looking for the limelight or looking to be in the public. Because this is what Jesus talked about. Don't be like the Pharisees who, they put their change in the plate or whatever they put it, the bowl they put it in, just so it can make loud sound so everybody could hear. They wanted the applause and the approval of man.
Right.
And Jesus is like, don't do that. Don't be like that. Be the one that's humble enough that if you do the right thing and you don't get credit for it, that just went out.
I know how to replace the battery.
Oh, okay. Do I keep going? Or?
Yeah, you should still record.
I was making a good point.
Don't be like the Pharisees that's looking for attention and all of that.
Right. Not to look for attention, but it was the sentence I was about to say, and I don't remember the rest of it. But basically, Jesus was confronting the Pharisees in their hypocrisy and how they were too concerned with people and wanting the praise of man. And it's like, listen, he said you got your reward right then and there. But for the one who does things in secret, the one who is not looking to be applauded, who is not looking for the thank yous and all of that.
Or at least being applauded by man.
Yeah, applauded by man. But what I was getting to is that the Most High will reward you. Now, do I know what that looks like? No. Not in terms of, I guess, in all aspects. All I can speak to is my own life. So automatically that reminds me of, the roles that I have right now as a wife, as a mother, and that I do that all day long, 24/7. And you don't always get recognition for what you do. I mean, I am grateful for my mom and my mother-in-law and like my parents that have in some way, shape, or form and even publicly say like, yo, I see the fruit. I see, what you're doing and your kids and, how you and your husband are, managing your household. So people see the fruit, but it's not always a day-to-day basis, someone always patting you on the back. And this is no shade to my husband because he's not obligated to have to tell me, hey, you did a good job today.
Like, good girl. Good girl.
That's
a good girl.
I'm not a dog.
I mean, hey, that secret place. That internal beast.
We're gonna leave that there.
Another topic, another conversation.
But, you know, even the idea of looking for my husband to approve me all the time. And, ooh, excuse me. It speaks very loudly to, or a better way to say it is, it's a challenge to not allow one to get absorbed with man's approval and man's praise. And sometimes the Most High's way of praising us may come in a way that is we're not expecting. You know, sometimes it might be seeing my daughters or my sons understand something that I was trying to teach them for a while. When they got it, it's like, okay, you got it, you were listening. You know, even though I may not have been sure if you were listening then or not, I just kept being repetitive. And then to see you got it is like, great, that's awesome. But also understanding like, yo, this can be practical in the role of motherhood. And for me, seeing how, there's a lot of ways I'm being challenged as a mom to not look for my children's approval. Like, like when I'm making breakfast and then they don't like it, or they like, oh, well, I want something else, and, not feeling offended, like, oh my gosh, I slaved over this kitchen to make you breakfast and you don't like it. It's like, okay, you can get something else then. Or that's all we have. And not feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm the worst mother on the planet. My kids don't even like my food. And being able to distinguish and really challenge the thought and the pride that can come with being an adult, being a parent, or having some type of authoritative role, and realizing like, my authority is nothing but servitude. Mm-hmm. So if for them, if there's sometimes, I'm gonna be just real with y'all. Sometimes I feel like a daggone maid. Like I'm waiting on them hand and foot outside of being a parent and giving them certain commands, that I'm really just catering to them. And to some level, that is it. But that's not a bad thing. It's funny. This made me think of Detour. This made me think of a song, Destiny's Child. You probably know it.
Let me cater to you.
Yes, cater to you. And it's this whole song about how they're going to cater to their man, and which I ain't mad at, right? Cater to my husband, right?
I'm on somebody.
But how we could accept in a culture the servitude of, well, at least in that age, I don't know where we at now, but we could accept the servitude of a man, especially if he's doing what he's supposed to do. But with children, it's a little different, because you're called to serve even when they're not doing what they're supposed to do. And that's to be expected, because what do we always say? Foolishness is stored up where?
In the heart of a child.
Exactly. So you're not always going to get the child that does everything you ask them to do when you ask them to do it. So it's a constant endurance that is needed to keep going and teaching and training these little lives that are going to grow and have memories and take along these things that we are teaching them with them. That is the hope. And so what does this have to do with Miss Lauryn Hill? Is that her lyrics are encouraging, and I feel like I'm not gonna be able to really touch much on her Unplugged album, but it's a testament of being able to take myself out of what I've been taught, either by myself or other people, what I've adopted from just this world of how I'm supposed to live, and then looking at the scriptures and now redefining what was already the definition was already there. I just needed to redefine it for myself because I was under a different doctrine. I was under a different law, the law of man, if I'm gonna call it. They called it the law of Moses. I'm gonna call it the law of man. But which was all this stuff that Jesus never spoke of, or that God.
Well, I wouldn't say the law of Moses was what the Pharisees was on. They was on that oral law. That was their tradition.
I think I used the wrong term.
Because the law of Moses is equivalent to just saying the law of God. It's Moses' law because he was the vessel that it was dispensed through to the Israelites. So it's not that the law of Moses was like bad or against God in some kind of way. You get what I'm saying? It was the oral traditions of the Pharisees.
I get it, but I thought that's the reason why they called it the law of Moses was more referring to, like, never mind. I'm sticking the pin in it. Okay, let me correct that. So,
no worries.
What's another way I can say it?
The oral traditions, the traditions of men.
Just scratch it. Just take it out.
What were you trying to say by saying that?
I'm trying to rephrase what I'm trying to say. Okay. Can't really think of a rephrase, but I guess the best way to say it is that these lyrics are encouraging to one who, this is segue into the next lyric, who feels like I'm on a journey as a rebel. Once again, these terms are all like...
I see what you did there.
Yeah. These terms are all... Not all, but sometimes can be... Huh?
I said, wait, do I see what you did?
Okay.
You better go into rebel?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
These terms are, they got like, a bad rep. So you think of a rebel and automatically, even me, I think of somebody that's doing something bad. And a rebel is not necessarily bad or good unless we can define what they're actually rebelling from. And that's the key point, is not that they're a rebel, but more so what they're separating themselves from. And so for Miss Lauryn Hill, she was separating herself from this culture that is so anti-God in so many ways that she lays out that I don't even need to explain, because she does a perfect job of saying it herself and giving you a story of what she actually went through. So she's not just speaking out of what she saw, but what she also went through. And her song actually is called Rebel, and even the title itself speaks to me, because I feel like in a lot of ways I am a rebel of my own self. Mm-hmm. Like, I am being separated from the old me. And it's funny because the old me was reading my Bible. The old me was going to church. My old me was doing all the things that I was supposed to do. But the old me got to a point where I wasn't thriving at all. The old me got to a point where I was dry, and I'm gonna get to that dry. And I used to tell my husband, I'm saying it like you're not here. I'm telling Khristian, I would call it the wilderness. I'm in the wilderness. That's how I would explain my dry season, my drought, in terms of my relationship with the Most High, and just understanding His Word. I just felt like there was a huge, big disconnect. And
us not being in the building anymore once we moved down to Georgia.
Right. And that was probably the biggest one, is our community looked different. It was just us versus having all these people that know your name and want to build with you and just... What?
Because we building.
Oh, want to build with you. And it was a huge transition. I'm not even going to undermine it. It was huge. Mm-hmm. And that saying where it's like, you don't know what you had until, it's gone. But is something to that. Because don't get me wrong, I definitely missed the community aspect of having all those people around. However, I also saw the miseducation of thinking that when you are in a big crowd, that's better than being alone. Because it actually matters what kind of crowd you were around. Now, not to say that all the people that I was around was like, crazy people or something, or just like, their doctrine was just nutty. Like, it wasn't everybody. So I'm not talking about everybody, but being surrounded by people that I trusted and that move differently than what should be expected of one who calls themselves a believer will make such a huge difference. And I believe is why a lot of people have issues with Christians today in the culture and wanting to engraft themselves in and be, I guess, adopted in the family of God. I think one of the major issues is what the Bible says versus what people do is not lining up. There's a disconnect. But going back to what I was saying about the rebel is getting out of that culture and stay with me here, because I know sometimes when we talk about the church and church culture, then it's like, oh, it's not my church. And it's like, I'm not coming at anybody's church, specifically. But if it applies, then yeah. But if it don't apply, then I ain't talking about you.
You're supposed to say, let it fly.
I know, but I couldn't get it out. Basically what I'm trying to say is that I was removed. I can't even say that. I removed myself from the church culture. I was removed, man. Like, it wasn't even like I decided thing. It was the Lord's hand who literally gripped us up and took us out. And not only was it just he gripped us up and took us out of the church culture, he literally took us out of our comfort place. Because our comfort was where we were in back in Philly. And now he took us away from there and put us in this other state that we never thought we would be in. And now we got to start everything afresh, new, right? And I thought, how could we possibly, build community and it just be us? How could we possibly understand his word and now we've been separated from church culture? And it's like, man, that has been the most freeing thing ever.
Oh, I would just say a miseducation of church culture.
Sure.
Because
that's clear. I like the clarification. Yes, because all church culture is not bad. If we're talking about the church as in the body, and we're talking about what lines up with his word, then this is not that's not applying to the conversation. I'm talking about the miseducation. So I thank you for clarifying that.
For sure.
So going into her Unplugged album with the Rebel.
So now this is the disciple level. This ain't just the crowds.
Right.
This the disciples.
Disciple edition, right? As I was beginning to really open my Bible again and get familiar with the text, laying down all my idols, all the things that I held so tightly to that were not truth. They were just things that I held on to because it was comfortable. Because somebody told me I was supposed to do it that way. And because I told myself that I'm supposed to do it that way. I laid all of that aside and I looked face to face at the Bible and began to read it for what it is and what it says and what it means instead of what I wanted to say, what somebody told me it said. I had to go to the source and read it for myself. I had to know for myself. I had to stand on my own 2 feet and do the work instead of depending on someone else and all their study time to give me what I could get myself if I just took the time. And consistently, because it wasn't that I wasn't reading at all when we were back in Philly. It was just, there was something that was missing. I would say something that was missing in my heart, the condition of my heart. And there was something missing in terms of being able to be confident in understanding his word in my time with him, in our discussion, rather than it be, oh my gosh, I thought I saw something. Rather than it be, I'm depending on someone else to give me that knowledge. Or that only people, certain people have this great knowledge about the Most High and everybody else just in the dark. So leading into Rebel, why it was so pivotal for me is I'm going to just give you one lyric that she just said. It says, okay. It says, fret not thyself, I say, against these laws of man. So I was talking about the traditions of men. This is one and the same. Because like the Bible says, his blood is on their hands. Right? If you know the reference, or if you don't know the reference, this is referring to the Pharisees. And it says, and what I gotta say is rebel. While today is still today, because you can't worry about tomorrow, right?
Well.
Choose well, right? And then she goes on and repeats it again. But that was the part that really stuck out to me. And I know it's just like, well, obviously it's called rebel. But it's funny because I never thought of myself as a rebel. I always thought I was very by the book. Like if the book said, you can ask him. If the book said you're supposed to do it that way, that's the way I do it.
But that's the beautiful thing.
That's not a bad thing, but in some ways it can be, depending on what instruction we talking about.
Well, I find the beauty in the fact that you're by the book, because now you being placed on this hill, you are trying to just look at what the book say in its plainness, outside of all of the added things and the laws of man and all of that. You're trying to look at, well, what did the Father just say directly? What did he reveal to this nation of people that we have to look at their scriptures and their writings?
What did he say to the called out ones?
Yes. What did he say? You know? So it's like being by the book in that way, trying to be right and exact and rightly divide in that way is a good thing.
Right.
Even though back then, the by the book, in terms of you going against a system or being counter-cultural in a sense, like that was unfamiliar. I was afraid
to be like Lauren. I was afraid to be like Miss Lauren.
Like when you cook, like you said, you need a recipe. You know what I'm saying? Versus, I'm going to add an extra tablespoon, or I'm going to do this because it's like, well, it didn't say that. Like, that's a good thing to have, you know? But, obviously cooking is a little different because you get to kind of be creative. But I think the by the book thing, initially, it might have come off as like, oh, you're a little too uptight, you need to loosen up. But it's like, yo, that in the days that we in now, it's good that you're by the book. It's good that you're not just like, oh, it don't really matter what it actually said. This is what I think it means. Nah, that was Eve's problem. Oh, we can't eat it nor touch it. Well, he didn't say that.
Right.
So it would have been good for her to be by the book during that time, or by the word, because there wasn't no book. But you know, but I just wanted to add that in there because it's
no. That's a good point.
Yeah.
But to add to that, I would say that being a rebel now, or seeing myself as a rebel now, and when I say rebel, it was going against how my mind processed things. I guess I could say prior to us coming here. I was broken, I was hurt, and I was by the book, but I had a strong dependence on others and people talking. I'm talking about people. and less of a dependence on the Most High. Even though I loved him, even though, I read his word, I didn't always fully believe it for myself. The rebel in me now is trying to come out more, in which I have to stand my ground while we are in this world. So while I may have friends or I may have people that I encounter with, and having to say no or say, hey, I don't participate in these things, and not feeling shame, right? We should be unashamed of the gospel. So, and the gospel isn't just some words that we just spout out about Jesus. The gospel is our lives too. And so my understanding of God's word has expanded in so many ways that I can't even really describe to you on one podcast. And so being a rebel means I'm not trying to go against the grain in terms of I'm just trying to be different. Oh, you wearing black, I gotta wear white. It's not that, but in trying to align myself up with the truth of his word has created or has made me a rebel, because it's made me have to stand against certain things and call a spade a spade. And I'm not as great as my husband, who, can deal.
Spades?
No, not that either. But who can? He does a pretty. I wouldn't say pretty good job. He does a really great job talking to people, even if they get in their feelings. I'm still working through that and being more bold, but I see within me the mindset and the heart of a rebel, where it's like, nah, I'm not standing for that. If his word says no, then I say no. If his word says yes, I say yes. I'm not for the in-between stuff. So if it looks like I hate somebody because of how much I love the Lord, then that's okay, because his word says that that's going to happen. But that's what I think about when I hear these lyrics about being a rebel. And it's like, not only did she say that she was a rebel, but she also said, choose well. I think it's kind of self-explanatory. Choosing well reminds me of how the Bible speaks a lot about being wise. You got a whole book dedicated to how to make wise decisions, Proverbs. So this is was thinking of, what song are we on? In this song of rebel, you're not just saying, well, just rebel from everything, but it's like and this is funny because this is the name of one of your songs. It's like getting out of this
social purgatory.
I mean, if you want to call it that.
That's what she said. That's one of the lines.
Or, just getting out of this world. And sometimes I found that there are things that are in certain cultures that we wouldn't expect would be worldly, but that are. It's like my journey has been, checking things to see, is this real? Is this true? Or is this not? And if it's not, then drop that thing, because it's not benefiting nobody. Especially not me. And it's like, keep it simple. Learning to keep it simple, and that there are things that the Lord made simple, made light, and man has made it heavy. And it didn't need to be. It wasn't intended to be that way. But, this ain't a bash on man, but I'm just saying, like, it's a lot of stuff to sift through. it's a lot of things to really think about, and being willing to die to self and die to what I want and what I desire, and say, okay, at the end of the day, I just want the Most High to be pleased. I want to do his will, but it's like I won't know his will if I don't read about what his will says. Because then if I don't do those things, then I'm just going to take whatever somebody else told me his will says, and because I trust them, I'm just going to trust whatever they say out their mouth is real. But if I know for myself, I can check, like, hold up, that ain't there. And it's not about checking people. It's more about you want what is true, what is accurate. Well, I don't know what you want, but I want what is true and what is accurate.
That's it.
I don't want to be deceived. I don't want to be lied to anymore. And I won't know deception and lies if I don't know truth to combat that. And so leading into my last song, and by the way, there's more songs I'm sure that have had an influence on me when it comes to Miss Hill, but these are just something that I picked out as just something to talk about, conversation points. But the last one was actually, is it He's Just Like Water, or is it just Like Water?
I think it's called Just Like Water.
Okay, so Just Like Water. My husband is more the expert, okay? I ain't even gonna hold you. Like, if we were doing like a lyricist battle, like who memorized her lyrics, like, and knows them more, he's gonna win that. I'm not even gonna hold you. I don't even know the whole doo-wop song. Yep, I said it. I don't know the whole doo-wop song. Most of the song, I'm probably just bobbing my head to it and just dancing. But
I need to make my name Lauren. Lauren.
But that's beside the point. I still love her music. It's just, I don't know all the lyrics, okay? Ask me about Disney music, then I'd win. But that's about it. But yeah, so in Just Like Water, I'm going to read you the lyrics. And I want to say this is how it kind of like starts off. I might have skipped some verses, but it says, cooling off the fire of my longing, boiling off my coal within his heat, melting down the walls of inhibition, evaporating all of my fears, baptizing me into complete submission, dissolving my condition with his tears. He's just like the water. I ain't felt this way in years. He's just like the water. I ain't felt this way in years.
That living water.
So, first off, all the ways that she describes that, like how water, all the descriptions of water and its movement. I'm just going to repeat just the movement. You have cooling off, boiling off, melting down, evaporating, baptizing, dissolving. And that's not even where she ends. She keeps going in further like verses. But when I heard this song, and I mean really heard it, and not just heard it because it was on in the car and my husband was jamming to it, because there were times where I was like tuned out. But when when I actually, cause he repeated it so much that I was like, you're about to make me hate this song.
Set you on fire.
But once I actually like opened my ears and actually like let myself hear her, I was like, whoa, this is really interesting. All I could think about was all the different ways that she kind of like managed to give us about what water does. And I was like, I never really sat here and thought about all the things that water does. It cleanses, and it you know, you can use it you can heat it up and make tea. Like, I mean, there's so many things that water does, and it flows. I mean, I'm not doing it justice, but the reason why water and its different movements and its actions speak so much to me is because it reminds me of the Bible and how water is referenced. You know, you have like, you know, the rivers that flow down. That's actually what Jordan means, which is our daughter's name, Yordani, is actually Jordan in a different language. And it literally just means to flow down. And then you have, you know, references like, you know, him, the Most High flooding the earth, you know, but saving Noah and his family. And you have, you know, Moses parting the Red Sea. You have the waters being separated, sky and the sea. Like, there's so many different stories and descriptions in the usage of like water. And it's like amazing what this element just alone can do. And it is refreshing, which water can also be, to me to be reminded of the living water, right? And we know the living water to be what?
I would say the Most High's word, but I mean, Jesus also mentioned that he carried, I would say the Most High's word, if I'm talking.
Yeah, but he carried out his word.
Yes.
So I think that's one and the same. And then we have the passage, not we have, but in the scriptures, there's a passage about, you know, directed to the husband about washing his wife with the water of the word, right? So going back to that reference of the water representing the word. And this is beautiful because just like the water has so many different descriptions, so many different ways that it could be helpful to us, so can the word of God. Mm-hmm. And so I know it's kind of, it can be difficult at times to see those symbols, but I promise you, as you read the word and you understand it, those things will come. You will start seeing the patterns. You'll start seeing all the symbols. And I can say that honestly because that's the journey I'm on now. It's hard not to look around in life and nature and all that we're in and all that we see and not see the Most High fingerprints in everything. So just like this element of water is like, man, it's hard not to know those scriptures that I just referenced to you and not connect water to word. So if water can do all these great things, then how much more can the word do? I mean, it's going to be the only thing that can stand, that won't deteriorate, that won't be destroyed. Mm-hmm. Like, and just think about water. It just flow everywhere. Let some like little nook and cranny be like open. It's flowing through there. It gets everywhere. You know, in the spills and man, I mean, I don't want to be redundant, so I'll just leave it at the water can do so many things. And so just like
perfect solvent too.
Yes, and so just how the water has so many properties and things that it can do, even for the body alone. I mean, we're made up of a certain percentage of water itself. And how that can be applied to the word and what the word can do for us. And how much we need it. We need water. Just like we need the word to stay alive. Like it's literally a direct correlation in so many ways that even though she's talking about water, I can see how this also applies to the word. And you could just go down the list of her lyrics in that way. And so that encourages me that don't forget about the word. It's so important to understand so we can know how to walk this life out of being righteous, being blameless, being holy and set apart. I realize where I'm at now, that I'm not going to be able to do that and walk in his way if I don't know what the way is. And it sounds so simple, and it's like, well, you were raised in church, how you didn't know that? I think that had to come with experience. I think that had to come with challenges.
And soaking.
And tests. Being tested to see, okay, I see that you reading, but you can read and not understand. And you can also understand and not do.
You can hear and not hear.
Right. You can hear and not listen. This is why James talks about being not only a hearer of the word, but a doer. It goes hand in hand. This is why I love James. He also talks about having faith, and listen, with that faith, that works is attached to that. They are one, they're unified. They work together. So if we want to live righteously, we have to understand what it means to be righteous, what it looks like to walk this life out. Not by what somebody else said or this church father and that person and this person. It's like, what did the Most High say? What did his son say? What did they say? What did his followers say? I mean, those are the people that wrote the book. So, but, you know, I hope, I'm trying to kind of end this, but I hope that this podcast would encourage you on your own journey, not in finding yourself for self-love and all this stuff that the world likes to like spew out, but that this journey would, if it hasn't begun, that it would begin. And that if you're like me, you're in the midst of this journey of seeking the truth out, that it would continue. And that once you understand the truth, you begin to understand and you can act on it, you, in a sense, become wise. Because the wisdom is having the knowledge and then not just taking it, but understanding it and then doing it. Being obedient. And when we can do that, I feel like not that just we're in a better place, but we can be like what I think Psalm says about being like a tree planted by the stream. And like, think about that. It's like, it probably would never die, or it would take a long time to die, and it will produce fruit. Like, yo, so many things that a tree does for people. And by the way, probably never gets a thanks. When's the last time you looked at a tree and was like, thank you for the oxygen. Thank you for the paper. Thank you for the wood in my house. Like, we're not thanking trees. And I know it's like, well, I was about to say they're not living beings, but they actually are living. They are alive, but we don't thank them. But they are constantly giving resources to people. And so I see how the Most High wants, I'm going to put this on me, wants me to be that tree. A tree that is giving of myself. Because when we look at Jesus as the example, he gave of himself to the point of death. And so if he's the head and we are the body, the church, then all those who are part of the body, no matter what part you are, no matter what member you are called to die to ourselves as well. So it's beautiful because something like some lyrics of a song that isn't a gospel song can still be encouraging because not because it has that title of gospel or inspirational, but just off the strength of what is being said and where these lyrics are being derived from. Clearly her source has been the Word of God, and she's made that very clear. You could just listen to Unplug and hear that. So I take it as such a compliment to have the same name as her, even though we spell it differently, to have the same name as her, and to see not the legacy that she has left on people that I didn't even know liked her. Like, I'm talking about celebrities too that pay homage to her in how they speak about her, even in the midst of all the challenges she had to face that I'm not even aware of. You're finished. Yay.
I gotta do this side.
Oh, okay, you didn't finish.
Almost
but
though.
Just wrapping up as we wrap this up. Yeah, I guess answering the question of being, or not answering the question, but being like a city on a hill is about not trying to gain the limelight or be in the light. That is something that the Most High does himself for his people. He says that he will exalt the humble. And the ones who exalt themselves, they're going to be humbled. They're going to be brought low. So the goal is to continue to strive for humility. And that's the beauty of being, I'm connecting it all together for a reason. That's the beauty of being in the secret place. That's the beauty of being a rebel. When society says you want to be out in the public, you think about social media, everybody's just putting their stuff out there. And I'm not coming at that, but we live in a world that is constantly publicizing everything. Everything is being put on the spot. And that we serve a God that is in the secret place. And that everything doesn't have to be publicized. Everything doesn't have to be known to everyone. Everybody doesn't have to give me a thank you. And understanding that this walk of dying to self means dying or killing my pride. Killing whatever I'm trying to stand on to make myself feel better about me and what I'm doing. Ooh, I'm a good mom. Ooh, I'm an excellent wife. Like, ooh, I'm this and that. And not letting that be where my dependence falls on. But it being in, what does his word say about his people? What does he want me to do? Not just what I want to do. And I will say honestly, as being a mother and a wife, which has been probably the most, outside of being, I guess, a sibling and a daughter, have been the most challenging roles that I have. Because they're constantly before me. I wake up, still mom, still wife. So I have, things that need to get done, things that I need to do, ways in which I'm called to serve my husband and serve my children, serve my family. And that is not an easy thing to do. It's really hard. But the hope is always that my servitude, even if none of them ever say a thank you, ever talk about how grateful they are for me, which I do get that from time to time, that I am more concerned about how the Most High sees me. If what I'm doing is so I can pat myself on the back, because that happens, I can do that. I can do something for my children or for my husband and be like, hey, look at me, look at me. And it's like, no, that's not how the Most High wants us to be. That's not how when I look at his word, what he's saying for his people for the way he wants his people to live. Humility is the key. And I think Miss Hill demonstrated that beautifully in the industry that she was in the arena she was in. So how to be humble when you're faced with all these things, even like tabloids or whatever, just that were publicizing and making up this story of how she was going crazy, or she was just like, not delusional, but what were they saying? They were saying like, what do they call it? It's a certain term that you call somebody that is like, in like some type of cult or something like that. And whether that, is true or not, I don't really get into all of that.
I mean, you can just look at the content and see what's going on.
You can still hear her lyrics, and it's just like, yeah, but she.
All right, well, go ahead, finish your thought, and then I'll share mine, because I got a few minutes.
I'm sorry. I think I was just going to say that even through whatever she went through, because at the end of the day, we don't know all the stuff that she personally went through outside of the stuff that she shared, that she was bold enough to scrutinize and be honest and use the word of God, use the absolute truth to hopefully encourage the people that were listening. Whether that's her fans, whether that's other people that admired her. Like, she could have just chose to do what the industry probably wanted her to do. And so I admire her boldness. I am encouraged by it. And it is a great reminder of where I am at in my journey, and to keep going and not be, not get it consumed with how everybody thinks, what they say about me, what they think about me, and how I move, how my family moves, but to just keep moving in the direction towards the Most High. And I'm done.
All right. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, it ain't like it's a speech, so you ain't got to be done talking.
Oh, no, but I feel like, I talked this whole time, so I really just want my husband to just take the floor, and I'll just be the listener.
Well, in light of everything that was just said, by the way, let me scoot this back a little bit.
We're tired, y'all. It's late.
In light of everything that was just shared from my wife, Miss Lauren, that's on the hill, I think I definitely echo a lot of things that you said about her, and I'm sure when I listen back to it myself, I'll be able to really appreciate all that you were bringing out. But I know I was kind of locked in on fixing this.
He was modest. He's got lots to say about her. He absolutely loves her lyrics.
Oh, without a doubt. Like, because it's truth, and real gonna recognize real.
It was hard for you to pick what you wanted to pick, because it's so much.
It's the whole album, really, for me. I mean, the fact that, so I came across this in brief, because I'm gonna try to wrap this up, because I know we got running low on time.
Sorry.
I was in the barbershop. I heard the barbershop owner playing this album on the TV, and it was called "Oh Jerusalem." So I'm like, I know this voice, and I'm listening to the words, and I'm like, what album was this on? This wasn't on no Miseducation. I'm like, where this from? So I went to look it up, and then after I listened to it, I'm like, yo, like the things that she was saying to me just hit. And this was during 2020, so that already was an eye-opening. It was while you were
going on your journey.
2020, perfect vision. So there was just a lot of symbolic stuff going on. Like, yo, man, just her unplugging from the industry and all of that, and just the world and people's expectations. It was just like, yo, it was just refreshing to hear this. So one of the songs was Adam Lives in Theory that she wrote, right? And one of the lines says, stop walking in pride. Let the thief be crucified. Unlearn everything you know and let him teach you. Talking about the Most High. Line upon line, every step upon precept. Say goodbye to this decaying social system. He wants to know how far we're willing to go. If we love him like we say we do, he'll try us. Just don't regress or slip into hopelessness. Once he's satisfied his love, he won't deny us. So, and that whole song is fire in general, but it's like there were just so many points within that song that was just so like impactful. Like pride, I feel like, is the ultimate problem. The Most High is against the proud. So when you're walking in pride, you're not allowing yourself to die. You're not killing your flesh because you feel like you self-made. You on a high mountain. You're prideful. But that's why when you fall from being proud, it hurts more because you're higher up, right? So I thought that was impactful. And then the next one, very fitting title, I Get Out, right? It says, oh, you'd be smart to save your soul and escape this mind control. You spend your life in sacrifice to a system for the dead. Oh, are you sure? Where's the passion in this living? Are you sure it is God that you're serving? Obligated to a system, getting less than you're deserving? Who made up these schools, I say? Who made up these rules, I say? Who made up these rules, I say? Animal conditioning just to keep you as a slave. Just get out of this social purgatory. Man, oh man. It's like, yo, this idea of the Matrix or this created world that is outside of what the Most High desires for us to operate in, we have the ability to get out of it, you know? And I think hearing this song, it made me even more of a fan of Lauryn Hill. I was always a Lauryn Hill fan. But hearing this particular album just really helped me appreciate her career, her ministry, I'll even say, in terms of what she's been doing and how she's been used, despite all of the negative perspectives that people would try to place on her. You know, now granted, she's still a woman and still a human, so I'm sure there's areas that she could tighten up in, right? She could be perfected and all of that, like whether it's concert attendance or, you know, sure, I'm sure there's areas that she could, you know.
All right, you went there,
but like she said, I'm out here saving souls and y'all complaining about my lateness. Like, you know, hey, look, what's more priority? But nevertheless, I feel like she has a lot to contribute to the culture in terms of the wisdom that she has in her songs. And I know my wife, as my wife and as the mother of my children, I see the wisdom that...
The mother of whose children?
Come on now. I see the wisdom that you bring to the table. And to me, it was a fitting discussion to have about Lauryn on the Hill.
So, this is Homebodies, where
home is where it happens.
And thank you for listening to our vlogcast.
Yeah.
And please tune in for other episodes. And what else do we want to say?
Engage with us, share it, whatever you want to do. But hopefully this information was edifying in some kind of way.
Enlightening, encouraging,
challenging.
And it's something that you can pass on to others.
Thought-provoking.
Thank you for giving us your time.
Your ear.
All right, now get the stepping.
Get the stepping. You ain't got to go home. Or
I'm not saying that.
You probably should go home. Yeah, go home. Go be with your family or wherever.
No, go home. Because it's where it happens.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
go home.
Go home, Roger.
What to say?
You ain't no twin.
Oh, I wish it was.
Well, thanks for stopping by.
Yes, see ya. Bye. We're closing the door.